hold me, I'm so cold." The rancher wrapped his coat around her and realized she had no pulse. The twin suns were sinking behind the jagged horizon of Coyote Delta, painting the dusty plains in harsh streaks of orange and violet. Rancher Jace Calder squinted against the glare, adjusting the wide brim of his hat. The wind whispered across the barren landscape, carrying grains of sand that clung stubbornly to his coat and boots. Out here, on the far edges of the frontier colony, there was little company but the hum of his hydro-cattle drones and the occasional caw of the metallic scavenger birds that circled overhead. Jace was checking the last of his drones, the ones that grazed on nutrient-rich synthetic grass spread across the canyon terraces. His routine was simple: scan the energy outputs, repair any mechanical parts, and make sure none of them wandered too far. Life was hard, but predictable, until today. Something on the ground caught his eye. At first he thought it was a piece of desert rock, twisted and smooth from centuries of wind, but as he rode closer his stomach sank. There was a figure lying face down in the sand, the outline of a person. A woman. He pulled the reins and nudged his mechanical horse to a halt, dismounting carefully. The closer he got, the more he realized something was off. Her skin. It had a faint glow, almost like the soft light from the colony's energy panels at night, and she didn't move. "Hey!" Jace called, his voice rough from the dry wind. "You all right?" No response. He knelt beside her and brushed sand from her shoulder. Her body was cold, too cold, and there was a stiffness to her limbs that made him hesitate. He reached for her wrist, feeling for a pulse. His hand froze. Nothing. Jace's heart beat faster, but not with fear alone. It was disbelief. Nothing in his years on Coyote Delta had prepared him for this. No pulse, no breath, yet the faint glow under her skin was unmistakable. She wasn't just unconscious. Something else was happening here. Instinct took over. He draped his coat over her shoulders, wrapping her tightly to shield her from the creeping chill that always came as the suns dipped low. He carried her to the saddle, strapping her carefully to the cargo harness. The mechanical horse whinnied softly, sensing the tension. Jace mounted and started the long ride back to his ranch, scanning the horizon for danger. Coyote Delta was harsh and unpredictable. The wind shifted suddenly, carrying clouds of charged sand that could fry electronics in moments. But Jace was careful. He rode slowly, keeping the glowing woman safe against the cold. Halfway back she stirred, a flicker of movement in her chest, just enough to make him tense. "Stay still," he muttered. "I'm getting you home." Her eyes opened briefly, violet and deep, almost too large to be human. Jace swallowed hard. There was intelligence there, yes, but also something alien, something he couldn't name. Her lips moved, but no words came out at first. Then a whisper. Cold. So cold. Jace tightened his grip on the reins, feeling a mixture of awe and dread. "I know," he said quietly. "I know. You'll be safe soon." By the time the ranch came into view, the suns were gone, leaving only the twin moons casting pale light over the desert. Jace carried her inside the main shelter, a combination of old wood and reinforced titanium walls designed to withstand the worst of the planet's storms. He laid her gently on a padded table near the energy heater and watched her chest. Nothing. He scratched his head, feeling the weight of the moment. "You're not human. Not really. What are you?" His voice sounded strange in the quiet room, as if speaking aloud made the question heavier. Then, faintly, the glow under her skin pulsed. A soft, rhythmic flicker. Jace leaned closer, fascinated despite the fear that clawed at him. The light seemed to respond to his presence, spreading slowly from her shoulders to her arms, as if she was trying to communicate. Jace wasn't a scientist. He didn't know much about alien tech or artificial life forms. But he knew one thing. This woman, whatever she was, had come a long way to end up here, on his ranch, alone in the dark. And she was alive, in a way that defied all rules he had ever known. He checked the storage closet, pulling out blankets and some energy packs meant for emergencies. Wrapping her carefully, he sat back on the floor, leaning against the table. His hands were still rough from years of ranch work, but he felt a strange tenderness. "Why here? Why me?" he muttered. Hours passed. The moons drifted higher, and the desert wind moaned through the cracks in the walls. Jace dozed fitfully in a chair beside her, his eyes snapping open at every small flicker of her glow. And then finally, she moved. Not her chest this time, but her fingers. One hand twitched, brushing against the blanket. Jace leaned in closer. "You're awake," he said, a note of relief in his voice. Her eyes opened fully this time. Violet, luminous, filled with curiosity and confusion. She tried to speak, but only a soft hum emerged. Then she pointed to the sky, shaking her head slightly. Planet, she whispered, her voice melodic, strange. Jace frowned. You're not from here? Far, he nodded slowly. That explained the glow, the lack of pulse. She wasn't fully human. Maybe a machine, maybe something more. But why was she here? And why now? The wind outside picked up, rattling the shelter walls. Jace could hear faint hums in the distance, Hydra cattle drones returning from the canyon terraces. But he knew the hums weren't the only sounds. Something was moving out there, something that had followed her. He stood, grabbing a flashlight and checking the perimeter. The desert was empty. Or at least, empty to the naked eye. But the feeling of being watched lingered. Jace wasn't afraid often, but tonight he felt it, deep in his bones. Returning inside, he saw her trying to sit up. Her movements were careful, precise, and almost mechanical. She steadied herself and looked at him, violet eyes searching. For a moment she seemed small, vulnerable. Then the faint glow from her skin pulsed again, stronger this time, as if signaling an inner energy that Jace couldn't begin to understand. I'm Lyra, she said finally. Her voice was soft but clear. Lyra, Jace repeated, testing the sound. Well, Lyra, you're safe here. I don't know what you are or where you came from, but you'll be okay. Lyra tilted her head, studying him. There was intelligence in her gaze, curiosity, and a trace of fear. Jace felt an odd kinship, as if they were both strangers on the same frontier, trying to survive in a place that didn't care about them. He poured her a small cup of nutrient liquid, one of the few things he had that might sustain her. She drank slowly, carefully, as if understanding the mechanics of the cup better than the substance inside. Outside, the wind continued to howl. The desert stretched endlessly, silent and empty, except for one rancher and a woman who shouldn't exist. The twin moons reflected off the metal panels of his shelter, casting eerie light on the two figures inside. Jace sat back, rubbing his temples. All right, Lyra, he said. We've got a long night ahead. I don't know what you are, and I don't know why you're here, but we'll figure it out. Together. She nodded slowly, the faint glow of her skin pulsing in response. And for the first time since he found her, Jace felt something he hadn't felt in years. A flicker of hope. The desert was still cold. The nights were long. But maybe, just maybe, the frontier had room for something new. Something strange. Something alive. And Jace Calder, rancher of Coyote Delta, had just become the unlikely guardian of a mystery that could change everything. The night on Coyote Delta stretched long and quiet, but inside the ranch the air was thick with questions. Jace Calder sat on a worn wooden chair, his elbows on his knees, staring at the faint glow of Lyra's form on the padded table. The desert wind moaned against the walls, carrying a chill that made the shelter feel colder than it should. Yet Lyra's glow pulsed faintly, almost warming the room with its strange energy. Jace had tried to get some sleep, but the moment he closed his eyes, he imagined her lying in the sand, unresponsive, lost to the harsh desert. He shook his head. He didn't know where she came from, or how she survived, or what exactly she was. But one thing was certain. She was extraordinary, and perhaps in trouble. As he reached for his cup of nutrient liquid, Lyra stirred. This time it was not a twitch or flicker. Her eyelids opened fully, revealing violet eyes that glimmered with intelligence and something else. Confusion. Maybe fear. She turned her head toward him, the glow along her arms and neck intensifying. Cold, she whispered. Her voice was soft but carried weight, like she was trying to pull meaning from the empty air. I know, he said gently. You're safe here. I promise. You don't have to be afraid. Lyra's lips moved again, forming shapes that were strange yet somehow understandable. Not home far, far. Far? Jace echoed. You mean not from this planet? Her eyes widened slightly and a faint pulse of light moved across her chest. It was slow, rhythmic, deliberate, almost like a heartbeat, but not. Jace realized then that her body was not like any humans he had known. She was something else, something in between life and machine. He sat beside her, keeping his hands still so as not to frighten her. What's your name? He asked. Lyra, she said again, carefully testing the sound. Her hands brushed the table as if discovering it for the first time. Lyra, memory, Carrie. Jace frowned. Memory, Carrie? Lyra's fingers traced small patterns in the air, like she was trying to pull invisible threads from the atmosphere. A small spark of light flickered along her fingertips. World, lost, need. Keep safe, she said, voice trembling slightly. Jace leaned back, running a hand over his face. He had known strange things happen on the frontier. Lost drones, rogue AI, even alien relics. But he had never encountered anything like this. Lyra was not fully human, but she was alive. In some sense. And she carried something important, though he did not yet know what. The wind outside picked up again, rattling the metal panels of the shelter. Jace stood, moving to the window to peer into the dark desert. The twin moons cast pale light across the dunes, and he noticed faint ripples in the sand, tracks that hadn't been there before. He squinted, but the desert was empty now. Still, he felt the prickle of being watched. He returned to Lyra, who was now sitting up with more confidence, though still tentative. "Safe?" she asked, her voice soft but urgent. "Yes," Jace said.
"You're safe here, but I need to know—"
"What are you? Where did you come from?" Lyra's glow shifted, brighter now along her shoulders. She tilted her head, thinking. Then she spoke slowly, words straining to form. "Far, system, planet, gone. Memories? Me carry?" Jace nodded slowly, piecing together her fragmented sentences. She carried memories, something from a world that no longer existed. Perhaps her purpose was not only survival, but preservation. He felt a shiver run down his spine. If what she said was true, then the galaxy was bigger and stranger than he had imagined. "You carry memories of a planet?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Lyra nodded. "Yes. Lost. Save. Future. Memories of a lost civilization, stored in her body." Her glowing veins and rhythmic pulsing made sense now. She was a living archive, perhaps part human, part machine, designed to remember what others had forgotten. The room was silent for a moment, except for the faint hum of energy from the ranch's systems. Jace felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Lyra was not just a person or a machine. She was something more, and she had come to him, stranded, vulnerable, and alone. "I won't let anything happen to you," he said finally, his voice firm. "We'll figure this out. I don't know how yet, but we will." Lyra's violet eyes seemed to soften, and she allowed herself to lean back against the table. A faint smile flickered across her lips, a human gesture, fragile but real. Hours passed. Jay stayed beside her, observing, asking questions in the slow, careful way he always did with animals or machines on the ranch. He learned her speech was slow, fragmented, but her mind was sharp. She remembered sequences of events, images of cities and skies that no longer existed, and details about people who had vanished with their world. Each memory she shared flickered as light along her skin, a luminous map of information that Jace could not yet understand. Suddenly, a soft vibration hummed beneath the shelter floor. Jace's hand went to his sidearm out of instinct, but Lyra's hand shot out first. She pressed it gently to the floor. The vibration stopped. Her fingers glowed, and faint symbols appeared in the air above her hand, symbols that shimmered and disappeared almost instantly. What did you just do?" Jace asked, awestruck. "Signal, safe, find me," Lyra whispered, her glow dimmed, returning to the soft rhythm from before. Jace realized then that her abilities were not only about memories. She could manipulate energy, sense others nearby, maybe even communicate in ways he could not yet see. She was alive in ways beyond the body, beyond life itself. The night stretched on, and exhaustion crept in. Jace leaned back in his chair, keeping an eye on Lyra. Her breathing, or the closest thing to it, was steady now. She drifted into a light sleep, her glow dimming but still pulsing, a gentle reminder of the mysterious life that flowed within her. For a brief moment, Jace allowed himself to imagine a normal night, the desert calm, the ranch humming softly, and a visitor who was strange but safe under his roof. Yet he knew better. Lyra was not ordinary. Her presence would attract attention. Drones, agents, or others who would want what she carried. He could not protect her forever, not alone. He stood and walked to the window again, peering into the desert. The dunes shifted in the moonlight, shadows moving as if alive. Somewhere out there in the vast emptiness, the universe was watching, and he had no choice but to be ready. Returning to Lyra, he whispered, "Tomorrow we'll figure out how to keep you safe. But tonight you rest. You need strength." She looked at him, violet eyes soft and trusting. Thank You, she said. Jace nodded, feeling the strange warmth of responsibility settle in his chest. He had never been a man of many words, but for the first time he understood the gravity of the moment. Lyra was not just a visitor. She was a key, something important, fragile, and dangerous, all at once. The wind outside rose again, swirling dust against the metal walls. The twin moons glimmered like distant guardians, and the desert stretched endlessly in every direction. Inside the shelter, two figures sat together, connected by trust, curiosity, and the unspoken understanding that the night was only the beginning. Jace glanced at Lyra once more before settling in for a short rest. Her glow dimmed further, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat that was not quite human. Somewhere in her mind, the memories of a lost world waited to be preserved. And he, a simple rancher on a lonely frontier, had become the guardian of those secrets. The desert outside was quiet, but Jace knew it would not stay that way. The universe was vast, full of eyes and dangers, and whatever forces had followed Lyra to Coyote Delta were still out there. For now, though, the ranch was safe, and she was alive. More alive than she had seemed in the sand. And in that fragile safety, a plan began to form in his mind. Tomorrow, they would move, they would hide, and they would prepare. Because whatever had brought Lyra here, it was only the first chapter of a story that was far from over. For now, Jace sat in the quiet shelter, listening to the pulse of light and waiting for the dawn. The desert of Coyote Delta was restless at dawn. Twin suns rose slowly, burning through the thin, dusty clouds. Jace Calder tightened his coat around his shoulders and scanned the horizon. The dunes stretched endlessly, golden and silent, but the stillness was deceptive. He could feel it in his gut. They were being watched. Lyra sat beside him on the ridge, her violet eyes scanning the distant canyons. Her glow was faint now, a steady pulse along her arms and neck, but the energy within her was alive, subtle, yet powerful. "They're coming," she said softly, her voice almost lost in the wind. Jace frowned. "Who's coming?" "Hunters? Drones," Lyra whispered, her hands tracing invisible patterns in the air. Sparks of light danced between her fingers. "Search, take memories. Dangerous." He had suspected that she would not remain safe for long, but hearing her speak it aloud made it real. Whatever had followed her to Coyote Delta was precise, relentless, and likely heavily armed. They would not hesitate to take her or the knowledge she carried. He stood and looked across the canyon labyrinth that stretched before them. The terrain was rough, with jagged mesas, deep ravines, and hidden tunnels. Perfect for hiding, but dangerous. One wrong step could leave them trapped or stranded. "Listen," Jay said, pulling his coat tighter. "We'll have to move fast. You stay close, do exactly as I say. Got it?" Lyra nodded, the glow of her skin pulsing in agreement. Fast, go, safe. Together, they moved down the ridge, careful to keep to shadows. Jace led her through narrow canyons where the sunlight barely reached, and Lyra's glowing hands created faint light shields to reflect the rays. They moved like whispers, silent but purposeful. As they navigated a particularly jagged canyon, a faint hum vibrated through the air. Jace froze, signaling Lyra to stop. The hum grew louder, mechanical, rhythmic. Drones. They were close. Jace motioned for her to follow, ducking behind a cluster of rocky outcrops. The first drone appeared, sleek, silver, moving like a shadow with red sensors scanning the canyon floor. Jace's breath caught. It had no weapons visible, but he knew better. Machines like that didn't need guns to be dangerous. They tracked, recorded, and would alert others. Lyra's hands glowed faintly, and a wave of light shimmered over the canyon floor. The drone's sensors flickered, confusing its scanning pattern. Jace let out a quiet breath. "Good work," he whispered. The chase had begun. Hours they ran, hiding in narrow canyons, jumping across rocky ledges, and sometimes resting under the thin shade of sandstone cliffs. Lyra's abilities became more apparent with each move. She could bend light around them for short periods, cool the air to hide their heat signatures, and even make the sand ripple in ways that obscured their tracks. "Are you tired?" Jace asked at one brief stop. Lyra shook her head, though her hands glowed faintly with exhaustion. "No, strong. Must go." Jace admired her determination, but worried. Even if her body didn't fail like a human's, the energy she exerted left her flickering at times, almost disappearing into nothingness before stabilizing again. Each use of her powers was a strain, and the desert was unforgiving. They reached a wide mesa as the sun began to dip toward the horizon again. Jace scanned the flat expanse below. Dozens of metallic tracks glimmered faintly, evidence that more drones were approaching. "We can't stay here," he said. "We need a plan." Lyra stepped forward, her hands glowing stronger now. Symbols floated above her fingertips, faint holographic maps of the area. She pointed to a hidden network of tunnels she had noticed on their way, a series of old mining shafts, forgotten by humans for decades. "Hide, go, safe," she said, her voice firm. Jace nodded. "Lead the way." The tunnels were narrow, dusty, and dark, but they provided perfect cover. Lyra's glow lit the walls, faintly reflecting off mineral veins that shimmered in pale blue. They moved quickly, the sound of their boots echoing softly. Behind them, the desert hummed with the approach of the drones. Suddenly, one drone entered the tunnel. Its sensors flared as it scanned for heat and movement. Jace pressed Lyra against the wall, holding his breath. Her glow dimmed, blending into the shadows. The drone passed by, humming and scanning, then continued deeper into the canyon. Jace exhaled slowly, relief flooding through him. "We can't let them catch us," he whispered. "Not now, not ever." Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in agreement. "No, must protect memories." Hours turned into night again. The tunnels twisted and turned, a labyrinth that even Jace sometimes doubted he could navigate. Yet Lyra seemed to know exactly where to go, her glowing hands leaving faint trails for him to follow. They emerged at last into a small cavern, hidden from view, with walls high and unbroken, shielding them from the moonlight. They collapsed onto the dusty floor, exhausted but alive. Jace handed her a cup of nutrient liquid, which she drank slowly. Her glow was faint now, pulsing like a quiet heartbeat. "You saved us," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly with gratitude. "No," Jace replied. "We saved each other. You're strong, Lyra, smarter than anything I've seen. But the desert isn't kind, and the world isn't ready for what you carry. We'll have to be smarter, faster." Lyra nodded, her violet eyes reflecting the dim light of the cavern. "Yes. Must hide, prepare, safe." Outside, the wind blew over the canyon ridges, carrying the hum of distant drones. Jace leaned back, studying the ceiling of the cavern. He thought about the long road ahead. They couldn't stay in one place for long. The hunters would follow, and each time Lyra used her abilities, it would leave traces that could be traced, even if they didn't know how yet. But for the first time since he had found her, Jace felt a spark of hope. Lyra was not only alive. She was clever, resourceful, and capable. Together, they might just survive. The night stretched, and Jace kept watch while Lyra rested. Her hands glowed faintly as she traced patterns on the cavern floor, as if continuing her work silently, preserving the memories she carried. He could only imagine the vast knowledge stored within her, fragments of a civilization lost to the void of space. "They will not take you," he whispered, as if speaking to the wind. "Not while I can fight, not while I can think. I promise." Lyra stirred, eyes opening briefly. "Thank you," she said, the glow in her eyes soft but genuine. Jace nodded, determination hardening in his chest. The desert was vast, the universe even vaster, but he had made a choice. He would protect her. Together they would survive, and one day, he hoped, the memories she carried would find a home where they could be safe. Outside, the desert hummed under the twin moons. Somewhere far off, the hunters were still searching. But in the hidden cavern, two unlikely allies, Rancher and Memory Keeper, planned their next move. The chase was far from over, but for now, they had each other. The desert waited, patient and endless, and Jace knew that whatever came next, he would face it. Because some things were worth protecting, even against the impossible. The cavern was quiet, lit only by the faint glow of Lyra's violet pulse. Jace sat beside her, leaning against the wall, trying to plan their next move. He had never faced danger like this, machines hunting a living memory, but he knew one thing. They had to finish what Lyra had begun. "They will keep coming," Jace said quietly, eyes scanning the entrance. "We can't hide forever." Symbols hovered for a moment, then faded. No, time, must share. Knowledge, safe. He realized that her purpose was bigger than both of them. The memories she carried, of a world lost, a civilization gone, could not vanish. If they fell into the wrong hands, it would be worse than losing her. "Then we share them," he said firmly. "We make sure someone else knows, someone who can protect them." She reached into the small pack Jace had prepared earlier and pulled out a crystalline device, a storage crystal capable of holding vast amounts of data. Her glow pulsed stronger as she touched it, and faint images flickered above her hands. Cities, people, skies filled with strange colors, Memories of a world long gone streamed into the crystal, saved, preserved. Jace watched in awe. "It's working," he whispered. "Working. Must finish. Safe," Lyra murmured, her voice a soft rhythm. Outside, the desert wind shifted. Jace froze, sensing the approach of drones, but Lyra's glow flared. In an instant, the cavern shimmered, and faint illusions appeared. Merges of her, dozens of Lyra clones glowing like lanterns. The drones, scanning from above, hesitated, confused by the illusions. "Go," Jace shouted. They ran deeper into the cavern network, careful to stay out of sight. The drones searched, but the illusions were enough to buy them time. Hours passed as they worked. Lyra continued to transfer memories, pulsing faintly but steadily. The knowledge of her lost civilization, its culture, its art, and its history flowed into the crystal. Jace realized that even if her body failed, the essence of what she carried would survive. Finally, Lyra's glow dimmed. Her hands fell to her sides, trembling. Jace caught her, steadying her against him. "It's done," he said softly. "The memories are safe." She smiled faintly, exhausted but peaceful. "Safe? Yes, thank you." Jace looked out through the cavern opening at the desert, now calm under the twin moons. The hunters would return, no doubt, but they would find only empty tunnels, illusions, and echoes. Lyra's mission had succeeded. In the days that followed, Jace safeguarded the crystal, keeping it hidden among the ranch's old storage rooms. He rebuilt some of the mechanical fences, set up decoys, and made sure the desert's harsh terrain remained their ally. Lyra rested, regaining strength, her glow returning to a soft, steady pulse. "You did it," Jace said one morning, offering her a cup of nutrient liquid.
"You saved their world."
Lyra sipped slowly, her violet eyes meeting his. "Save, together, you help," feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in years. "We make a good team," he said. "The frontier's never had anything like us before." The desert wind shifted again, gentle this time, carrying with it the quiet promise of a new day. Jace stood at the ridge, the twin suns rising over the horizon, painting the dunes in gold and crimson. He looked down at Lyra, sitting among the rocks, and felt a profound sense of peace. They had survived the chase, protected the memories, and faced dangers that no ordinary frontier rancher would dare. And in the silence of Coyote Delta, they had found trust, courage, and a connection that would guide them through the unknown future. Jace adjusted his hat and squinted at the horizon. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and sometimes cruel. But as long as he and Lyra were together, he knew they could face it. Lyra's violet glow pulsed softly in the morning light, a quiet heartbeat of a lost world preserved, a reminder of the extraordinary in the ordinary, and proof that hope could survive even in the harshest deserts. The desert stretched endlessly, but for the first time Jace Calder felt that the frontier held more than survival. It held possibility, adventure, and life beyond understanding. And as he looked down at Lyra, he whispered, "We've only just begun."